Hello there. Those Remoaners out there will do their best to mislead you, so don't fall for it. And here's one way they try to undermine the Brexit argument. Now, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and then like and comment below. So what's the latest little trick the Remoaners use to try and pull the wool over people's eyes regarding Brexit? Well, it concerns the Dublin Agreement. As you probably know, when we left the EU, we also left the Dublin Agreement. Now, the Remoaners are claiming that if we hadn't left the EU, we would now be in a position to return many of our English Channel red carpet visitors back to the first EU country they arrived in using the Dublin Agreement. And therefore a lot of our problems with rubber boats is all down to Brexit, they say. And these claims are all over social media. So I decided to have a dig around and see what I could find out. And the UK government handily provides the data for the full 6 years between the start of 2015 and the end of 2020. Now, one thing you might not have realised about the Dublin Agreement is that it works two ways. And you have to make an application for the transfer of the person or persons involved. And here is a graph of those leaving the UK and those coming into the UK because of the Dublin Agreement. The green line shows outgoing and the red line shows incoming. So during those 6 full years, the UK took in a total of 3,961 people, but only 1,765 left. And as I understand it, that was down to families coming in to join those who had managed to get in anyway. But it's much worse than that. Over the time frame, there were 11,729 requests for the UK to receive people and 30,713 requests we made for EU member states to receive people back. That means of the requests made for the UK to receive people, 33.8% of them were successful. But on the UK returning people to the first EU safe country, only 5.7% were successful. And in 2020, the numbers coming in were over 8 times more than those leaving, all due to the Dublin Agreement. As far as I can see, the Dublin Agreement was obviously not working, and in fact it was of very little or no benefit to the UK at all. And as Migration Watch concluded in 2019, it was not worth continuing with. In fact, looking at those statistics, I'm sure we'd have ended up with even more today if we'd stayed in the programme. They'd already be emptying the French camps. So the next time Remoaners talk about the Dublin Agreement, just ask them why we would want to join a system where more people came in than left. And if Labour starts talking about rejoining that programme, you know what their intent is. And as to those arriving from the ECHR signatory and safe country of Albania, there should never be a need to allow asylum. In fact, maybe what we need is a list of countries from which we might consider asylum, but only with documented proof. And right now, local councils in the UK are doing their best to push back against Home Office plans by applying for injunctions to prevent hotels being used to house refugees in their areas. Localgovernmentlawyer.co.uk reported yesterday, East Riding of Yorkshire Council, Ipswich Council and Stoke-on-Trent City Council all obtained temporary injunctions in October, following on from Great Yarmouth Borough Council, which secured an injunction a month earlier. And if this practice continues, we will see hotel space fast drying up. What then? Now, there had been talk of putting tented villages on London's parklands to house them, but I'm not sure the courts would wear that, especially the European Court of Human Rights. So maybe what we need to do is build the tented villages and decamp all MPs, lords, judges, lawyers and civil service mandarins into it until they come up with a proper solution. Now, these local councils getting injunctions will be reacting to the concerns of their local voters. And Tory MP David Davis said that his local Yorkshire East Riding Council was doing the right thing by getting an injunction. It turns out that the Home Office just contacts hotels directly and completely bypasses the constituency MP and local councillors. Now, one of the councils that has got an injunction, Ipswich Council, is a Labour-run council. And that injunction stops any hotel in their borough being used as a hostel by accommodating asylum seekers. I wonder what Keir Starmer and his team in Westminster think about that one. Here's Starmer pouring bile on the Home Secretary for not providing hotel space, when one of his councils is actively part of the problem. You couldn't make it up. Maybe the Labour hierarchy needs to impress upon its councillors that they are in an open borders party. Because when Labour does get in, it will be a case of you ain't seen nothing yet. But it is nice to hear that one hotel being used to accommodate our visitors is only a 10-minute drive from Rishi Sunak's Richmond Manor House plus heated swimming pool. So at least he can put Starmer back in his box on that one. Now we come to net zero. Talking to the BBC, the boss of National Grid, John Pettigrew, said that for the UK to hit the government's 2030 renewables targets, we would need a 400% uplift in the number of those huge offshore wind turbines. That's 5 times as many as we have at the moment. But to get that electricity ashore, it would take 7 times more grid infrastructure than the UK has built since 1990. Now that sounds very expensive to me, and it would take a bucket load of copper and steel just for the wires and pylons. And it would be vastly more expensive if we decided to bury the cabling instead of littering the coastline with pylons. And the problem is that when the wind doesn't blow, there is no power coming from a hugely expensive asset. And what will be there to keep the lights on if the eco-loons get their way? Fairy dust and unicorn power? We need to get real and keep the oil and gas flowing until we have a solid nuclear power base. Anything else is basically the stuff of la-la land. So the financial markets want to see a significant rise in interest rates from the Bank of England tomorrow. And as we've seen, it's always the markets that rule the roost, mainly due to the massive national debt we have. And those markets are expecting an increase of 0.75% to take the bank base rate up to 3%. A high level by modern standards, but not historically. And the warning is that anything less than that will spark a sell-off of the pound and things could get volatile all over again. Rates going up will help savers. In the long run, if banks increase savings rates, that is. But as ever, mortgages, loans and credit card debt will very quickly see the interest rate rises. Makes borrowing for business pricier too. The Times has a shadow monetary policy committee and they all agree that the UK bank rate should go up by 0.75% to follow an expected 0.75% increase in rates by the US Federal Reserve that might have happened by the time you see this video. And the next inflation report from the ONS for October is on the 16th of November, the day before Jeremy Hunt lays out his tax plans for all of us. Crunch time is fast approaching for many hard-pressed people. And finally, when subscribing, please don't forget to press that little bell and also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the show.